Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, Let me extend a warm welcome to all our distinguished speakers and all of you present today for this session on 6 mantras for business excellence being organized by the Council of EU Chamber in association with the Leap to Excel. My heartiest welcome to speakers of today morning, Mr. Vittal Nayak, Mr. Abhay Desai, and Mr. Kiran Rekhi. So we are going to organize a 2-day session which will cover the various aspects with prime focus to help SMEs with a bunch of offerings from entrepreneur development to operations, sales, marketing, strategy, finance, all. So our esteemed speakers have extensive global experience with a strong track record of delivering exceptional result in dynamic and competitive market. They will be talking about the various mantras to accelerate your business growth. So I'm sure by end of a session, we are going to have quite a fruitful discussion. Let me briefly introduce our speakers of today morning, Mr. Vittal Nayak. Mr. Nayak was the human resource head for the Indian operation at Arvind, Pillsbury, Shapoorji Pallonji Engineering and Construction, and he has also worked with the SKF. Along with a certified coach, Mr. Nayak has worked extensively in the area of human resource strategy, performance management, talent management, and organizational development. So this is about Mr. Vittal Nayak. He comes with a really a very strong credential. And the next speaker is Mr. Abhay Desai. So Mr. Desai is an astute sales and marketing professional with more than 2 decades of leadership and operational experience with the leading companies like Force Motor, Mahindra and Mahindra, and Godrej. His experience in managing the global business and developing business plans and the long term has helped the companies with the market. Our next speaker of today morning is Mr. Kiran Rekhi. Mr. Rekhi has received his formal training in the business process re-engineering in UK from UK-based consultancy firm and has worked with the Mahindra Group for almost 40 years. He has been certified as a TPM instructor by the Japan Institute of Plant Maintenance after completing his training in USA and Japan in 1999. So we can see we have really speakers who comes with a lot of experience, and I'm sure we are going to have a very, very interesting session today as well as tomorrow. Just for the sake of audience, I know most of you know about the chamber, but still I thought let me take the opportunity to very, very briefly talk about the chamber, which is a 28-year organization and popularly called the EU Chambers. The EU Chamber is one of the foremost trade organization based in Mumbai, and our primary promoters consist of a European binational chambers and the binational European business committees, and its chief patron is the EU ambassador. And the membership of the chamber has a representation from a various industry. I would say almost all industry we represent, and we have companies from various sectors, across sectors. And of course, I would say the composition of our membership is 75% would be SMEs and rest would be large companies. So EU chambers play a pivotal role in assisting its member companies to promote the trade relation between the two regions. And of course, we try to help our member companies to develop their business also. In addition to that, we have a functional and sectoral committees in the chambers on the I would say on various topics and all, and sectors which are prominently represented in the membership. Also, what we do, what we believe, since now in this new model, there would be a huge scope of augmenting the relationship between EU and India. So particularly through the promotion of the SMEs either side. So in this case, we are trying to, help the SMEs, I would say, like, with the help of our expert, advising them and mentoring them. So this is all in a nutshell about the organization, and I wish all the best to the speakers. And with this, I would request Mr. Vittal to kindly take over it, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we get the screen on? Okay, great. Welcome to the Six Mantras, and thanks for having taken time to be here today. Uh, we'll do our best to present what we think is the way to look forward and to grow in the current world. So, next, please. Yeah. So we have today we're going to take time from now till about 1 o'clock, and the same we're going to do tomorrow. And at some point, I will take you through what are we going to talk about today and what are we going to talk about tomorrow. Next, please. So let me start with talking about Leap to Excel and who we are. So we are a consulting organization who have come together as a network to deliver integrated business solutions. So we're a network of 24 people. Combinedly, between all of us, we have about 750 years of experience. And if we were to look at the experience, it's commonly divided between working for global organizations and working for Indian firms. So we have an extensive track record of working for global organizations. At the same time, we have an extensive record of working for Indian organizations. And what's common amongst the 24 of us is most of us have worked in turnaround or transformation situations. So we've been working with organizations which were not doing so well and have been part of a story of actually transforming that organization. Yeah, that's where we come from. Next, please. So if we were to look at our purpose, mission, and values, our purpose is to accelerate business growth of entrepreneurs and organizations. And when we say that, we specifically talk about Indian organizations and entrepreneurs. Large organizations, multinationals, there are enough consultants in this country who can provide service to them. Our purpose is to look at those small, medium players of Indian origin who can actually grow the business globally. Okay. Our mission is to provide holistic solutions that will make a significant difference. We do not only provide consulting in one area or two. We say, let's look at the entire basket, what all is available, and we'll talk about that as we go forward. Our values are trust. We trust ourselves, we trust our clients, we trust our partners. Making a difference, actually making a difference for the people we are working for, and excellence in everything that we do. Next, please. So, if I were to ask you, what is your topmost organization challenge currently? Please use the question box. If you go to the right hand side of the screen, you'll see a thing called questions. Please use that to type in what is your topmost organization challenge. Take a couple of minutes, quickly type so we can see what the challenges are. Okay, thanks, Shweta. Retention of good staff. Yes. Key challenge in current times. To grow the sales. Thanks, Sandeep. Absolutely, to grow the sales. Especially when demand is inconsistent. There is a lot of Mandar, thanks. Okay, can others mute their mic, please? Because Mandar says there's a lot of disturbance. So retention of good staff to grow the sales. Anything else? Any other key challenges? To keep staff motivated, absolutely. To create out of the box ideas. Thank you, Nimesh and Ram. Anyone else wants to use the question box to put the challenges? Okay, thanks everyone. Can we move to the next slide? So we started our network in 2016, April of 2016. So we've been in this space for the last 4.5 years, and we've substantially worked with a lot of MSMEs. Okay, and this is our viewpoint of what we see as the key challenges they face today. Yeah, next, please. So one of the biggest challenges is managing the working capital. Do I have cash to do business? Okay, that's a huge thing. Either I am not getting paid or I have to pay in advance, but there is a huge challenge on cash flow and managing the working capital. Next, a lot of MSMEs are currently dependent on a few customers for business, because 2 or 3 customers form 80% of their revenue. And if one of them were to walk off, then there's a significant challenge on how to make the top line. Next, please. There is a lot of inconsistent demand. Today there may be demand, tomorrow it vanishes. In this current VUCA world, you don't know when you are actually going to be asked for stuff. Next, please. There's a lot of margin pressure. There are a lot of other players in the place, and everyone wants to make their money, so they are willing to cut prices. There's a lot of margin pressure. There's a lot of costs which cannot be cut currently, and we are unable as MSMEs to get either a discount or a credit, because the banks want a lot of documentation in the current situation, and it may not be possible for us to provide all of that. Next, please. And with the inconsistent demand, there is a challenge. How do MSMEs manage the inventory? It can't be too low, it can't be too high. If it's too high, cash is blocked. If it's too low, when a sale needs to be made, it's not possible. On top of that, there is rework and rejections. How do we manage all of that? In addition, as someone mentioned, how do we attract and retain talent in current times? And especially as an MSME, how do we do that when a lot of people want to look at large organizations? Next, please. Maturity of HR processes. Do we take care of our people? Do we have processes and systems that will ensure that people enjoy staying with us? Is another key challenge. Next, please. And finally, competition from the unorganized sector, which again puts margin pressure and leads to an impact on profitability. So these are, as we see, it's not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there are other challenges, and all of you may not be facing all of these challenges, but these clearly are some of the key challenges we see in the last 4 years that are faced by MSMEs, and these challenges are getting even more challenging in the current environment with COVID. Yeah. Next, please. In addition to the challenges, there are certain mindsets of the MSMEs, and I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about the mindset. The first is, absolutely, they understand their business. They understand their business like no one else can. That's a fact. But because of that, at times, they're reluctant to change what they are presently doing, because they think the way they have been doing their business is the right way. And therefore, at times, there is a reluctance to change. Next, please. Along with that, there is a resistance to use new technology and processes, because the current processes have worked. They have worked for all these years. So why should I look at something new? So change and looking at something new is a key challenge. Okay. They tend to spend a lot of time on financials instead of other matters. And when I say financials, it's actually more of accounting. They tend to spend time on seeing how much money was made or not made, rather than look at the bigger picture. And we will talk about that in our last session tomorrow, How finance is about analyzing and correcting and not about accounting and assembling. Yeah. Next, please. There is a tendency to look at the short term, today, this year, rather than look at the long term and strategy. So, what is our purpose? What do we really want to do? Can we shift from this year to what we want to do? Because at times that may mean that this year we may suffer, but that is the right thing to do for the long term. Next, please. They rely on loyalty at times over expertise. Loyalty is important. One is not taking away from the fact that you need loyal people who will stay with you. At the same time, expertise is also important. So, can we balance loyalty and expertise? And they tend to rely on chartered accountants and company secretaries to make sure that there is compliance. At the same time, can we rely on professional consultants? Because right now we see that there is a tendency to rely on the chartered accountant and company secretary and not so much on consultants who can provide a holistic solution. So that's our take. It's not an exhaustive take. Based on that, we've looked at what are those 6 things that really make a difference. And to do that, we've referred a lot to the Malcolm Baldrige model, if some of you are familiar with it. And we believe to really excel as a business, there are 6 mantras. And those 6 mantras are: first is leadership. The leadership that is there in the organization and how it influences and impacts everyone within. That's the first mantra. Second mantra is strategy. How do we create a strategy for the long term to meet our purpose, to meet our vision? Third is operations. How do we make sure our operation is nimble? There is no waste. We are getting the best out of everything. These 3 we will cover today. Tomorrow, we will look at customer and market, because we are in existence because of our customers, and how do we value that relationship is extremely critical. After that, we will look at our human assets. We can't do what we're doing without people, and the people are differentiators and creators. A manufacturing unit can get a plant, every company can get the same plant, but they can't get the same people. How do we use people as differentiators and creators? And finally, how do we tie this all up, and how do we create a process by which finance is not a documenter but is a key stakeholder to ensure we organizations analyze and prosper? So that's what we are going to cover over the next 2 days. Today, we will focus on leadership, strategy, and operations. Tomorrow, we'll focus on customer and market, human asset, and finance. Next, please. Any questions at this point of time? Please use the question box again. Just if you have, we will address the questions at the end of every section. But before we go into the 3 of the 6 mantras, any questions at this point of time? Use the questions box. Okay, great. I see there are no questions. So let's move on. Today, we're going to cover 3 mantras. Leadership is the first one that we're going to look at. Strategy is the second one. And operations is the third one. I'm going to take you through leadership. Abhay is going to take you through strategy, and Kiran Rakhe is going to take you through operations. In today's world, you're never sure about technology. So each one of us have a backup speaker. Just in case we fall off, they will take over. So in case I drop off when I'm talking about leadership systems, my colleague Atul will take over. In case Abhay drops off when talking about strategy, Rajesh will take over. And in case Kiran drops off when talking about operations, then Anil will take over. Yeah. So we've planned about 40 minutes for each of these mantras so that we make sure we close at exactly 1 p.m. and don't keep you here longer than you were expecting. Our talk is going to be just about 20 minutes in each mantra, and there are going to be 20 minutes for question and answer. So at any period of time, if you feel like you have a question, go to the questions segment and type in your question. We will not answer it then and there so that allows us to flow with the presentation. But at the end of our presentation, which will not take more than 20 minutes, we will answer as many questions as we can. The questions that we can't answer, we will get back to you. Yeah? So we'll ensure that happens in the coming week. Yeah. So now we'll go to the first mantra, and that is about leadership. So yeah, next please. Yeah. So if we look at the role of the leaders, and don't click Rajesh further, can you use the chat box to type in, sorry, the questions box to quickly type in what do you see as the role of leaders? Anyone, use the questions box to type in what is the role of leaders? Yes, find staff who will grow the business, to keep team motivated. Absolutely. Thanks, Shweta Rohit. Yes, 360-degree role. Bhavani, thank you. Role of the leader is to lead from the front. Absolutely. Self-motivated and to motivate others. Yes, it's a lot about motivation. It's a lot about creating the right kind of thing. So if we were to look at it, we believe there are two types of roles. One is on a day-to-day basis and one is an overall overview basis. So let's look first on a day-to-day basis. What do we see as the role of the leaders? Next, please, Rajesh. The first is evolving and communicating the vision, mission, and value to all the stakeholders. Vision is about creating a purpose for the organization. Where do we want to go? And that needs to be known by all of the stakeholders, the employees, the partners, the vendors, the customers. All of them need to know what is our vision, what is our mission, and what are the values we will live by. This is one of the key roles of the leader. How do we create and communicate the vision, mission, and values to everyone? Next. Next for the leader is, okay, we've created this vision, mission, value. How do we actually role model this? As a leader, I need to do and say exactly what the vision, mission, and values are saying. It can't be the value is about integrity and I am not role modeling integrity. Then as leader, we send very confusing signals to the population. So it's about creating a situation where we exactly role model the vision, mission, and values. It is also about building a sustainable organization, not for today and not for this year, but it is about creating a long-term sustainable organization. A couple of years ago, there was a very interesting study done by Harvard Business School on the top 50 organizations in the world. And they realized when they did that, if you went back to 1950 versus 2000, which is a span of 50 years, only 3 of those organizations were still amongst the top 50 in the world. So how do we create an organization that is sustainable? I continue to be critical and I continue to be relevant in that segment. It's not about the short term. Leadership is about the long term and sustainability. Next, please. Another key element of leadership is how do I create and develop future leaders who can be my successor plan. The biggest pitfall of leadership is not to replace yourself. The best thing you can do as a leader is find a replacement for yourself. So another key role is succession planning and development of future leaders. Next, please. And the final one in a day-to-day network is to encourage transparent two-way communication. Whoever I am in the organization, I can put my viewpoint forward. Hierarchy is not relevant in a two-way communication process. So these are the 5 elements which are on a day-to-day basis got to be looked at by leaders. There are a couple of other more dimensions which are overall at a governance level. Next slide, please. So at a governance and a social responsibility level, there are a couple of things that we need to do as leaders. Next. One more click. Rajesh, can you click another 3 clicks? Yeah, one. Yeah, one more. Yeah, one more. One more. Yeah, thanks. So, no, yeah, thanks. So one is about creating a governance system so that every action that we take as management is accountable and there is complete transparency. There is nothing hidden. The second is to evaluate performance of the governance board initially and the senior leaders. We talk about appraisals and performance evaluations of the CEO, the general managers, and the managers. But the leadership role is about creating an evaluation of the board members. Are they doing what is right? And the senior leaders. So that's another key governance responsibility of leaders. Showing legal and ethical behavior is another one. And finally, especially getting more and more critical in today's world, how do we support the environment and communities as a large? A lot of what has happened in the last 4 months has asked us as leaders to say, are we doing enough to support the communities and environment in large? And are we paying attention on that? Or are we just looking at the top line and the bottom line? Then we are not really playing a key leadership role. Yes, the top line is important and so is the bottom line. No one is shaking away from that. But at the same time, are we doing enough to support the communities and environment? That is a key element of governance and responsibility that we as leaders need to take. Next, please. And if we now look at, things have changed quite dramatically on leadership. If we went back, and I'm not talking, it's even shifted more dramatically in COVID times, but it shifted about 5 years ago. Earlier on, leadership was about, am I focused on my plan? 1-year plan, 3-year plan, 5-year plan. Am I focused on that? Now it is, am I focused on the vision and the purpose that I set up this organization? And understand there is a dramatic difference. If I'm focused on the plan, I'm focused on numbers. If I'm focused on the vision, I am focused on what I want to create. And leadership is about shifting nowadays from the plan to the vision. Next, please. Next is, in the past, leadership was about control, regular reviews, weekly reviews, daily reviews. Am I making sure everything is happening the way it was meant to happen? Today, leadership is about creating new things, evolving new ways. It's more about creation than control. Next, please. In the past, leadership was about autocratic. It is my decision, everyone follows. We always said the leader decides and communicates and everyone follows. Now it is about a shared style. Solutions, creation, everything is jointly created. So it's from single point or autocratic to shared. A lot of leadership was about finding and removing faults. ये गलत है, वो गलत है, how do I correct it? ये सही नहीं हो रहा है, इसको improve कैसे करें? Again, what we are saying is that's not unimportant. Those are important. But now leadership is about there is no fixed formula. How do we create adaptive alternative solutions? In the current environment, how do we work from home and yet deliver what is required? So it's all about adaptive solutions. Next, please. In the past, it was about IQ and intelligence. Do I know? Am I an expert? Now it is no more about that. It's not that expertise is not relevant. It is relevant. But it is all about empathy as well. Do I connect? Can I understand people? Can I be with them? And can we together do whatever we need to do? Next, please. And finally, it was about playing safe. There was a fear of taking risk. I know what is I'm doing. It has worked so far. I continue doing that. Moving from there to embracing risk. Can I actually try something completely different? Because in today's world, that's what's going to work. That's all I had to talk about. Next slide, please. Yeah. So please, I'm going to pause for a minute before I take you through a case study so that if you have any questions, please put them in the question box. And Abhay, if you can just, sorry, Atul, if you can just look through the questions so that at the end of the case study, we can take, you can tell me the questions and I can sort of respond. Or you can respond, or anyone else for that matter.
Yeah. So yeah, there is one coming in now. Do you want to address it now or after the case study?
I'll first finish the case studies and then we'll address the question. Yeah, thanks, Atul.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Great.
Yeah. So just a minute for everyone to type in any questions so far. Then I will take you through a case study of what we've actually done with the client to give you a better insight into how the leadership system practice can help organizations.
Vittal,
Yeah,
there is a request that will it be possible to go to the last slide?
sure. Rajesh, can you go to the last slide? Rajesh, can you work? Yeah, there. You want me to say, anyone wants me to say anything about that?
Pushkar has asked this.
Okay, so if he has a question, we'll address it later. I'll just keep this slide on for 30 seconds more before we move on. Yeah. Yeah, Rajesh, can you move on to the next slide? Okay, next bullet. So let's take a case study. In all the case studies, we're going to talk about the client background, then we're going to look at the client challenges, then we're going to look at actions implemented and the results. So this client is based in north of India and is almost 70 years old. And 70 years ago, they were a significant player in their particular industry, but they lost a lot of traction. So they went from being the best to being an after-ran, somebody who was there in that place. 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago, actually, 2010, they brought in someone, and that person has been able to make a shift. So it's no longer an after-ran, but it was somebody who was there in the system. But they were struggling to move to the next level. Somebody who is back to being a key player. This was their background. What were their challenges? Next, please. So the biggest challenge was leadership team not on the same page. The board and the operational management were at loggerheads. What the board wanted to do, the operations team did not believe was right, and vice versa. So that was a huge challenge. Mindset of the leadership team. A lot of the leaders thought nothing can change. And there was no clarity of what the vision of the organization was, what their mission was, and what were the values that were core to them. These were just missing. So non-alignment of leadership team, fear mindset, and lack of clarity. Next, please. So what did we do? We first ran a top team alignment workshop where we got the senior members of the operations team and the board together and used a technique to actually create alignment between them. So there was a common purpose. With that common purpose, we created a vision, mission, value framework. We involved the top 42 members of the operations team and the top 2 members of the board in creating a vision, creating a mission for 2025, and creating a set of values by which they would run the organization. And not only did we create that, we actually propagated that across the entire 370 people. So we actually ran workshops so that each and every member of that organization was clear about what was the vision, what was the mission, and what are the values. And it was not only about saying what the values were, for as an example, but what it meant. If we said a value is customer comes first, then as a person in the organization, what are the behaviors you need to demonstrate to make sure that a customer comes first? So that amount of detailing and propagating was done. In addition, we took the top 42 people through a development program to change their mindset. If you remember 2 slides back, and Rajesh, can you go a couple of slides back? Just because I think it's important. One more. Yeah, so yeah, no. Yeah, go to that leadership traits. Wow, it's going super fast. Can you go to the slide which says leadership traits? Don't worry, take your time.
No, go forward, Rajesh. Go forward.
Go forward to the slide which says leadership traits.
I think there is a lag. Now it's come across.
Yeah, okay. So go to the slide further ahead. Yeah. No, just why don't you switch off and go to that slide on leadership traits without presenting necessarily. Okay, but do whatever. Because it's still stuck here. Rajesh,
Rajesh, the slide just before case studies.
Yeah, do this. Move to the slide just before case studies. Yeah, this one, absolutely. Yeah. And when, if you're, okay, leave it without, don't present even. So the workshop was about changing the mindset of the leaders from focusing on plan to focusing on vision. From all of these elements, don't focus on control. How do you create a mindset of creation, shared style, adaptive, empathy, and risk? So the entire workshop, and Rajesh, you can move now back to that slide on the case study. Yeah, put the first 3 bullets up. Thanks. So we did a 12-day development intervention for each of these 42 people to completely look at a different mindset. At the end of the day, what were the results? Next, please. Next. Okay. So results can be tangible or intangible, and it's not possible always to get tangible results. But in this particular case, we did. So the tangible result was the productivity increased by 30%. Now understand, the productivity can increase even by operational excellence. The productivity can increase by HR processes, finance processes, or whatever. Here, productivity increased purely because there was an alignment of leadership. There was a common vision, mission, value, and there was a shift in mindset. In an 8-month period that we did that, there was a 30% increase in productivity. What was the intangible benefits? There was camaraderie, there was alignment, there was shared focus, and there was a common focus of all the 375 employees. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah.
So how long?
So,
once again, I just want to make sure I'm not. Yeah. So we have another 13 to 14 minutes. Yeah. So Atul.
okay.
Yeah.
So several questions are coming here, and I'll just go in the sequence that we have received them. The first one is coming in from Mr. Sandeep Navlekar, and he's asking, what is the difference between vision and mission?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Sandeep, and there are multiple answers, and I don't think there is a definitive answer, but I'll tell you what our answer is. A vision is something that is never attainable. It's like a topless mountain. Okay, so it is like that is our purpose in life. It can never be actually measured. You can never figure out if you've reached there, but it's a goal you work towards. Mission is something that you want to do specifically. Okay, so take Coke as an example. The vision could be to own the maximum share of stomach, whatever we eat or drink, a maximum share. Can you ever measure it? The answer is no. It's a lifelong dream. Mission could be, okay, I want to be so many crores, I want to do this, I want to do that. Yeah, hope that answers the question. Mission is specific, vision is a dream.
So the next one is coming in from Mr. Nimesh Vora, and he's asking, can you please emphasize more on creation-oriented reviews, reports, MIS, etc.?
Okay, sure. Normally, what we tend to do is we look at results, and if results are not coming, we focus on the mistakes. The entire focus is on what went wrong, fault finding and fixing. Okay, what we are saying is, as leaders, yes, mistakes happen. Can we focus on creation, actually looking at a new way of doing things? We normally tend to intensify what we are doing. So for a long period of time, I was in the corporate world and I was reviewing stuff. And if things were going, used to review, normal review would be once a month. If things started to go bad, we would review once a fortnight. And then we would review once a week. And the entire process of review was about finding faults. If we can shift to, yes, what happened last week was not good, can we look at a new way of doing things? What needs to change for us to actually evolve? Can we create the mindset of creation and change rather than review and control? And don't get me wrong, that does not mean the review and control is not important. It is. But along with that, can we do the creation? I don't know if that answered that question, but
Yeah. Okay, so the next one is from Mr. Shekhar Verma, and he's requesting if you can please elaborate more on the intelligence part. He's referring to the slide on leadership traits.
yeah, so if you look at it, we always look at intelligence. What do you measure about a person? IQ. Yeah. When you're interviewing a person for a position, what do you measure him or her? What do you evaluate him or her for? कि उसको आता है क्या नहीं, उसको पता है क्या नहीं. Yeah? Do we actually evaluate them for empathy, for emotional intelligence? Can he or she connect with people? Can he or she be supportive? We normally evaluate for intelligence. We normally pay attention to intelligence. Okay? My daughter is in school. What do I ask her? How much did you score? Which is a question of intelligence. Do we ask her, how do you connect and relate with everyone else in the school? We don't. Leadership today is shifting from not only intelligence. Again, we're not saying intelligence is not important. It's shifting from intelligence to intelligence and emotion, empathy. Can we be on that side as well? That is even more important. There is research to show that in today's world, as you go higher and higher up in hierarchy, emotional intelligence is more important than IQ. If you are somebody who's starting work and an individual contributor, then yes, IQ may be 90% critical. But when you're the CEO of an organization, emotional intelligence is 90% critical. You are not there because of the intelligence you have. You are there because of the connectedness you have.
Okay, so the next one is coming in from Mr. Ravindra Rajwade, and he's asking how to get the sales team achieve their performance.
Can I leave this for another section? We are going to talk exactly about this tomorrow when we talk about human asset, and we are going to spend a lot of time on performance. So I would like to leave that for then, because that would be a more appropriate time to address this question. But Atul, can you just note that question down for tomorrow? It's tomorrow. Sure. Yeah, thanks.
Sure. The next one is from Mr. Nimish Vora, and he's asking if there is someone in the team who is competent for the profile, but is not self-motivated or depressed. How to create that self-motivation or self-uplifting?
Yeah, so the simplest answer is the person needs either mentoring and or coaching. And as a country, we are still realizing how critical mentoring and coaching is in this world. It's very, very important for leaders who are facing difficulties or struggling to actually be coached. And we can have a separate side conversation on this any of the days. That option is there, and we will talk about that at the end, to talk about how one can actually coach and evolve mindsets.
Okay, the next one is coming in from Ms. Shweta Sheth, and she's asking how can one create a good mindset between the leader and their teammates? Sometimes the leader is insecure with the growth of their team members. How can that be tackled?
Beautiful question. Leadership is about 3 levels. First is about leading myself as an individual, and that is about developing my mindset. And there is a whole school of thought of ontology of how you develop mindset. And Shweta, we can have a separate conversation on that. So that's one part. How do we develop mindset? Okay. Second is, how do you create? There are two elements to a team. There are things that which do not allow a team to really be productive, and we call them dysfunctions of a team. And there are elements which allow a team to be highly deliverable, and that's a high performing team. So one can actually run a program with the entire team together to say, how do we eliminate dysfunctions and how do we actually create a high performing team? And one of the core elements of that is trust. And how do we trust each other as team members? And we can talk about that in any point of time, because it's a fairly long, but we can have a conversation at any time.
Okay. Next one is coming from Brigadier Burway, and he's asking, what do you think about team development and teamwork for a leader?
I'm not sure, but okay. If the question is how important it is, I would say extremely important. No longer is the world about the leader taking decisions. No longer is it about the leader saying what needs to be done. It's about the leader working with the team to create a solution that works, because there are no right and wrong solutions anymore. Life is about what's the most appropriate solution, and that requires the leader to work with his team and develop his or her team and work together. Atul, I'm not sure I answered that question because I was not very sure about that question. So if he has a follow-up, just check later on.
Yes, I mean, we can connect with Brigadier Burway separately. Only two more left. The next one is coming from Jubin, and he's asking how to embrace risk. Can you please elaborate?
Embrace the fear. Risk is external. Fear is internal. I am scared. I am scared of what will happen to me. I am scared if I will fail. I am scared of what will happen to my image. I am scared of what will people think about me. And we can go on, and we can talk about this, but don't worry about what's happening externally. Focus on what's happening internally. The more and more leaders can do that, the more and more successful they can be.
Yeah, and I guess mindfulness could play important role here.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So why don't you talk a minute on that?
Yeah. No, I'm just suggesting maybe we can have separate talk with Jubin as well, that how mindfulness is becoming increasingly important for leadership roles, and how that helps greatly in towards addressing his question. How do we really go about embracing risk? So we can have separate talk there. The next one, and this is the last one, coming from Mr. Indranil, and he's asking about what is the difference between the review and control. What should be our mindset while doing so? So difference between review and control.
Okay, review can be control focused or creation focused. Okay, so it's not a difference between review and control. When you review, you can be reviewing what's going wrong, or you can be reviewing what's going different, or what needs to be different rather. Again, it's not that the first one is wrong and the second one is right. But if you look at it, leaders tend to review what's going wrong. And that is the focus. And how do you correct that? That is important. Also, can we review what can we do differently, even if things are going perfectly right? Or if things are going wrong also, can we review what can we do differently, not to fix the solution, but to just look at things from a different angle. So yes, review for sure. Look at, can I review both at control as well as creation?
Okay, so we're coming almost to an end. Mr. Nimesh is writing that, yes, thanks for mentioning the mentoring suggestion, and he would like to connect separately, as well as with Brigadier Barwe. We would get in touch with them separately. So thank you so much, everyone. And that's the end of questions, Victor.
Yeah,
Thank
you. And I now hand over to Abhay to take us through strategy. Thanks a lot for having listened to me patiently.
So thank you very much, Vittal, for giving us an interesting perspective of leadership. Now we will be touching the second mantra of global excellence, which is strategy. You all must have heard this particular word quite frequently, right? Because we keep talking about strategy. We keep reading about it. We read a couple of definitions about it. But there has to be a very simplistic way of looking at strategy overall. For example, we are, say, going for a cricket match, and we say, what is going to be our strategy for winning today's match? Or if there is an educational institution in a particular place who has the ambition of becoming rank number one for a specific course or specific stream of education, they will say, what are the different activities or actions we should initiate so that we will get to that particular rank number one? Or in business, we talk about overcoming competition of a specific competitor. So there are a lot or set of actions, okay, you will think of initiating to fulfill your aspiration. Now, whatever examples I tried to give, the cricket match could be a very short-term kind of a strategy where you are thinking of set of quick actions to be initiated so that you can win the match. However, if you are talking about achieving rank number one, it can be a little longer term perspective with set of actions, and you will reach probably that particular level of rank number one. So strategy in the simplest form or in the simplest way, you can say these are
Abhay, your voice is lost.
no, because the link is gone.
But I can see you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
you're
can
back
see you.
now. You're back now.
Yeah. Abhay, we are able to hear you.
But I won't be able, I can't see the slide.
So have you minimized the GoToWebinar thing?
Let me check. Yeah. Rajesh, okay. So can you see me and can you hear me properly, Rajesh?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
I'll go to the
then
next
I'll
slide.
continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll continue. Just wait for, just give me a second.
Yeah.
So when we are talking about strategies, nothing else but what you should be doing and what you should not be doing. So Vittal specifically spoke about the two elements of leadership, right? He spoke about vision and he talked about mission. When we are working with different organizations, right, we talk about vision, mission, and goal. So it's a very frequent terminology which we try to use. So as Vittal mentioned, vision could be how do you want to see your company as at a longer term? And mission could be how do you want to reach there? So they are the set of actions which you want to initiate to actually achieve that particular dream. Or how do you want to see your organization as? And goal can be just a quantification. So strategy actually for company revolves around this particular words, vision and mission. So companies can have different strategic intents. So somebody might be interested in becoming preferred supplier of particular product, service, or a concept. A company might be interested in having major presence in a specific geography, or they might be talking about having presence in, say, 30 or 50 specific countries. Might be thinking of getting market share, or even they can be interested in becoming lowest cost producer for a particular product. So these are the strategic intents. Different companies will have different intents. So all the actions planned by you to reach there is actually, in simplest of the words, is the strategy. So they are the set of actions, what you should be doing, okay, in the times to come, and what you should not be doing as an organization. Rajesh?
Yeah.
So there are four very important and interesting elements when you talk about strategy. So they are basically geographical expansion, the market expansion, the product extension, and segment expansion. So I'm going to spend some time on these four dimensions, which are very interesting when you think of building an integrated strategy for the company. And believe me, these four dimensions are true for a small, medium, and large organizations. So many a times the SME segment companies feel that our organization is of a smaller size, and why we are talking about such critical dimensions to the strategy. But as they are applicable to the large organizations, they are also applicable to the smaller organizations. So when we talk about geography, there are different geographies in the world. So whatever product, service, or concept we are in, are there any opportunities outside India or outside our boundaries? Market expansion talks about, even if we are working in a particular city or particular state or particular region or pan-India, are there any white pockets available where we are today not present and which can be very effectively explored and we can physically reach those particular markets? Product is talking about adding specific products through product extension, product adaptation, or product development strategies. And lastly, the segment expansion strategy. So let's go one by one. So first we are talking about exports, okay? So Rajesh, you shift to the next two slides and then we will come back to this particular slide again. So when we talk about export, this is just a framework which I've tried to put in for companies who are involved in the export activities. So we can have two different options while looking at the export strategy. So one, we actually carry out, okay, the market mapping for the globe, or 207 countries which are available in the world. But that is really, really difficult, right? Because when we talk about getting to 207 country data, it is extremely difficult because that kind of data is not available. When you look at EU or Europe, when you look at Americas, for most of the products and services, the data is readily available. But when you are thinking of export strategy and when you look at Latin America, Africa, or ASEAN, most of the data would not be available. So the other approach could be of looking at Indian exports to various continents and countries. And this particular data is available through different sources within India. So once we analyze and understand this, a critical step in the export strategy is market identification. That is, which particular markets we should actually focus on. And this particular strategy decides which are the markets available for us depending on the product or services we are operating in. Rajesh, can you shift to the next slide and come back to this? So there are four elements which are used. This is a typical funnel or a filter theory. So on the left-hand side, you will see Indian exports. This is the actual data which is captured from different sources of India. Put the first filter as market size, and you will suddenly realize that there are certain markets which are big and certain are small, and which will not allow you, okay, to enter into a specific market because of sheer size. If the size is not attractive, you will not enter into that particular market. So naturally, the total pie which was available for you for exports suddenly has become smaller. You put the second filter, which is product suitability, the funnel or the pie has become further smaller. Then you talk about price suitability, the price at which you would like to sell the product. The pie will become further smaller. And the fourth, the most critical element is ease of entry, the trade and non-trade barriers set by that particular country, and which will ultimately give you the actual markets which are available for you to focus. Now, when I talked about trade and non-trade barriers, there can be, as you are already, some of you are already into exports phase, you must be knowing about the tariffs, the quotas which are introduced by different countries, the standards, the local content requirements, investment restrictions, okay, or even the bureaucratic hurdles. All these elements are basically trade and non-trade barriers, which are put by different governments to restrict entry of a particular company or particular country into the other country. This can be related to protecting their own industry or own manufacturing units present in that particular country. But these trade and non-trade barriers are there, and which actually restricts your entry into those particular continents or markets. If this process is scientifically followed, you will come to know which are the markets which are readily available for you. Rajesh, can you go to the previous slide? So this was the point number 2, which I've tried to mention in the export strategy approach. So once you understand the overall data which is available and you talk about market identification and which markets to focus, we need to decide on which are the markets you want to focus in the phase 1. Now, why this is critical? This is important because no company, okay, would be in a position to focus on all the available markets at one go. It's going to be really tough because the kind of energy, the kind of investment, the kind of time which is required to establish and explore these markets is going to be really tough. So depending on the ease of entry factor and the other 3 factors what I mentioned just now about market, product, price suitability, we need to decide which particular markets we want to focus in phase 1. And naturally, going after a particular time frame, the phase 2 and the phase 3. Now, if we are already in exports, so now this particular point is only for those companies which are already selling. Now, live markets, the country strategies with activity plans and budgets. This is one exercise many smaller or mid-sized companies do not do. Because a typical approach taken by us is whenever we get an inquiry, we are never interested in losing that opportunity. So what do? We just try to grab it. So what happens is, without even thinking about futuristically, is this business or this country or this continent is important for my business? And does it fall into my overall integrated strategy for the company? We grab that opportunity. But if we cannot sustain and if we cannot develop that particular business, the impact of that particular order or business can be negative in the longer run more than positive. Because unless we are sure of creating 3S, the sales, the service, and the spares facility for our client, it is going to be really difficult to decide whether to continue with that particular country at a longer run. But for new markets, definitely after prioritization is done, we need to build a business case, okay, to check the financial viability. Now, why I'm insisting all these points? Because when we are talking about the geographical expansions moving outside Indian continent or India, many a times we fail, okay, or we do not look at this important key elements of the export strategy. So if the business case is created with financial viability, then you are pretty sure, okay, of becoming successful in that particular market. This also includes the sensitivity analysis when you are doing financial viability, because looking at those financial dimensions become critical, which are going to impact the business directly. That also includes the foreign exchange movement, how that currency is moving in the particular market. So all these factors put together talk about the new markets. And naturally, then the entry strategy, where we are talking about validating the present data and deciding on the business model to enter through direct export route, own branch, joint venture, acquisition, distributor with limited localization, or having your licensing office. Now, all these different ways are basically different ways of collaborating with somebody in that particular country. Now, it entirely depends on which particular model to select. And this is most crucial for the success of your business. So when we talk about integrated transnational strategy framework, all these parameters become very, very important. And for the live markets where we are already selling, just put into that strategy framework and check whether we have completed all these particular steps and do it fit into the overall strategy part. So these are the different steps we initiate for the export strategy. Now, companies who are already into exports can do a much detailed job on this and decide on the further countries to enter. And the companies who are not into this particular space can always think of entering as a big opportunity. Because today, when we talk about COVID situation, right, last 3 or 4 months, everybody in India today is having challenges. And that is because of a couple of reasons. I'm not talking about specific segments like pharmaceuticals, specific segments where, okay, like FMCG, which are still consistently doing okay. But other segments like manufacturing, engineering, okay, automotive components, they faced huge problems because of this. But companies who had a transnational strategy framework ready could at least start establishing business into other countries during this particular tough time and manage their business well. I'm going to talk about one particular case at the end of this session, which will exactly tell you how that organization from Pune successfully, effectively worked on these 4 parameters, which I'm going to explain now, and managed to overcome, okay, the difficulties in this particular time. Rajesh, go back to slide number 2. So this was about the geographical expansion part. Market expansion, I spoke. Like if there are any pockets available within the country, okay, where the product or services can be sold, we should be doing extensive exercise for this. Now, for all this, there is a beautiful process called market and competition mapping process, which we are going to cover tomorrow when I will talk about a customer and market initiative. Because one challenge, okay, which everybody might feel at this juncture is how to get that particular data about the market before expanding into those particular pockets. So there is a beautiful way of creating that particular data. and then actually acting on it. When we talk about product expansion or extension, there are three critical things. One, we are talking about product extension. So whatever product we are selling today in India, we are going to extend the same product to the other markets. So take example of Maruti. Maruti sells exactly similar vehicle to Bangladesh or to Sri Lanka or Pakistan or any other country in nearby areas, because it's exactly the same product which can be introduced to that particular country. But the moment we talk about European country, there are a lot of changes required. So that is actually called product adaptation, depending on the standards set by that particular country or the regulatory requirements of that particular country, which will push you, okay, to make certain changes in the product. That is exactly we talk about product adaptation. Take example of Mahindra, who is market leader in tractors. But when they thought of selling the tractor in markets like Australia, market like US, or even European markets, they had to change a lot of things in the tractor. Because the moment we look at India, we have smaller, okay, farm sizes. So the HP of the tractor is small, application is different, and there is no cabin. The only thing we offer is the canopy. But in European standards or as per the regulatory environment requirements, a cabin is compulsory. So you need to actually make those particular changes in the product, which is typically called as product adaptation. So couple of dimensions which decide this could be consumer test. It can be habits. It can be use of the product. So from right-hand drive to left-hand drive. So we will have to make those particular changes in the vehicle. You have to adapt to that particular requirement. For test, I can give you one simple example. Like even Mac, when they're trying to sell burgers in India, there is a difference between the product which is sold in other markets and Indian market, because it is as per the consumer test, they have made certain changes. So it is not extending the same product which is offered to other markets. It is actually the adapting to the actual requirement of the market. Many more examples you can think of when you talk about product adaptation strategy. And then it could be a completely new product. So we talk about, take example of Toyota, who came out with Etios for only Indian market. So that's a new product development for Toyota, only suiting to Indian requirement. Now you will feel that these examples are of larger organizations, but there are smaller companies who are into assemblies, manufacturing components. With smaller changes, they are in a position today, okay, to provide these particular products to outside world by just adapting few changes in the requirement of the client. And this thinking, okay, in the strategy part will help you in terms of getting that growth what you are anticipating. Fourth important dimension is segment. Now you have been hearing Mr. Modi talking about Atmanirbhar. So we are not only talking about Make in India, we are talking about self-reliance, and we are also talking about taking our country to a level where we talk about make for world. One excellent example of which Mr. Modi talked about a few days back, of allowing Indian companies to enter into segments like defense and aerospace. Last couple of years, companies like Larsen and Toubro, company like Godrej, company like Dynamic Technologies are big time working into this particular space. We have started manufacturing products like BrahMos and Sobot, Vikas cryogenic engine. All this is manufactured in India today. So when we are talking about this kind of segments, lot of opportunities, okay, emerge. Similarly, we talk about this. I'm giving you an example because L&T and Godrej are nodal agencies who are basically looking at various companies, okay, for supplying either components, assemblies, semi-assemblies, and a lot of engineering companies from Mumbai, Pune, and other segments got opportunities by just changing their core strategy and entering into a completely new segment. Another dimension could be that if you are not supplying to a particular segment today, your present product, you can even look at opportunities which will open up, okay, into those particular segments for you. So if you look at these 4 dimensions very seriously, okay, and do a good scientific job, believe me, lot of opportunities, okay, will open up for small, medium, and even for large companies. And that will actually help you in terms of creating that long-term vision, what Vittal was talking about. How do you want to see your organization as? And those set of actions on these 4 elements will actually help you reach there. Now, to support this, there are 3 more dimensions, okay? So one is the investment strategy, because unless and until, because I can talk about geographical, market, product, and segment expansion. But to support this, what you will require is the investment to basically build the infrastructure for manufacturing and sourcing. So both these dimensions are important. Okay. Rajesh, can you shift? So then we are talking about last 2 elements of the strategy framework. So when you are deciding on these 4 elements and the investment required in building infrastructure and sourcing, you need to view at your resources, internal capabilities, and opportunities available differently. And that you have to do by keeping 3 elements in mind. What are the actual customer needs? What is the competition? And what is the operating environment? So your success will depend on how effectively you use your resources, how effectively you build and utilize your capabilities, and how differently you look at opportunities with context to these particular elements. The chances of building a robust strategy are better. And in the process, it will also help you to build a high performing teams and achieve targeted results, because there will be a clear direction and all the people would be working in keeping the same vision, the same mission in mind, and keep working towards those numbers what you are looking at, whether it is revenue, whether it is profitability, whether it is a number of countries presence, or any other aspiration what you have kept for yourself. So before we go to the case study, okay, because all these strategies we actually utilized, okay, while for one of the clients to whom we are servicing today, and that case study I'm going to present for all of you. But before that, if there are any specific questions related to how to build a strategy or the strategy framework, I would be more than glad to reply.
Okay, no questions at this stage, Abhay. Maybe you can go forward with the case study and we'll come back to Q&A.
Sure, absolutely fine, Atul. Because I'm unable to see those questions.
No problem. I'm having a look at it.
Wonderful. So Rajesh, can we go to the next slide? So, yeah. So it's a case study. So I'll just give you a small background. There was a company in Pune, okay, with 28 crores turnover. They were into machine components. And when you are talking about machine components, they were supplying it to 5 different segments. One of them was dairy equipments. Second was they were supplying it to electrical equipment companies, oil and gas, engineering, and the earth moving equipments, companies like JCB. So they were manufacturing these components and supplying it to them. But 3 years consistently from, I'm talking about 14, 15, 15, 16, 16, 17, this particular company was completely stagnated and they could not increase their turnover. So when we spoke to the MD about his concerns, naturally he mentioned that my aspiration is to become 100 crore organization. Can you support? Rajesh, can you go to the next slide? So the 3 objectives, what he mentioned, okay. So when you talk about objective, so that objective was kept as from 27 crores business, we would like to go to 100 crores in 3 years. And 3 specific areas, okay, what we selected at that moment of time. One was segment expansion. Second was market expansion, which I explained already about new business opportunities in domestic as well as global. So which is geographical expansion. And this by building a very powerful, sustaining sales and marketing organization. Because even they had this particular problem of first not getting competent sales engineers, and secondly, keeping them or managing them in the organization. Because as the organization was smaller, people used to very frequently change the organization. So we started working with them in 2016, and last 3.5 to 4 years, we are working with them. And these are the left side. We have tried to put the actual figures, okay, what they could achieve. So from year 16, 17 to 19, 20, against the target of 100, they grew by 42%, 50%, and 40%, and reached a level of 82 crores, okay, by March 20. If COVID wouldn't have impacted, okay, post February on their business, they could have probably reached a level of 95 CR for 1920 as a revenue. And this we could achieve by doing, okay, 3 specific actions, okay. One of them was segment expansion. Like I mentioned about defense and aerospace, we opened up this particular segment with them and started supplying it to 2 large corporates, Godrej and Larsen & Toubro, and which actually helped them in managing huge business. Because today they have set up one more plant, okay, for manufacturing defense and aerospace components. So they actually diversified into a new segment completely. They invested into infrastructure, which was actually required for manufacturing and sourcing. And when it comes to new opportunities in domestic and global, whatever pockets they were selling, we tried to open up new customers from different countries for the same 4 or 5 verticals they were already supplying. And on the product extension, they were only manufacturing components. So what did we do? We actually helped them in terms of building semi-assemblies and assemblies instead of just supplying components. And many customers, okay, started coming to them. And the present clients gave them additional business as a part of the overall business. Because earlier they did not have 2 specific facilities with them. One of them was welding, second was grinding. By adding those particular machines today, instead of just talking about component supply, they could add assembly and semi-assembly business into their portfolio. And a lot of opportunities emerged. So as a strategy, if you look at this particular example, they actually worked on all the 4 dimensions of business, which is product, market, segment, and geography, and successfully grew from a level of 27 crores to 82 crores today. So this particular case study, we wanted to share with all of you, because it's a live, clear example of the strategy work, what we have done with one of the clients of ours. Rajesh, next slide. So the approach, while explaining the first slide, some of the points have been clearly explained, but I'm just taking you through 3 different phases, how we actually moved on this particular assignment and how did we achieve these numbers. So we started with business assessment and understanding of their present challenges, which is a standard approach we take when we work with any organization in the transformation or growth journey. Understanding of their sales organization and roles and responsibilities of the present team, and assessment of the systems, process, and workflow. Then we created the business plan with roadmap for them for 3 years, and then the recommended effective sales organization. So many people ask questions about reviews also when Vittal was presenting. So very robust, sales organization was built, but after that, a very robust review system was built for sales, so that there are very regularly weekly and monthly reports which get generated in a particular format, and monthly reviews are conducted not only at sales and other department level, but also at the management level. So this was the overall approach taken, and the company today is extremely happy because of the transformation they could see in the entire journey by adopting various concepts, what we just discussed. So thank you very much. This is what I wanted to cover. And if you have any questions, I would be very happy to reply.
Yeah, the first one is coming from Mr. Sandeep, and he's asking, how do we build the strategy for an extremely stretched goal, which seems impossible at this moment?
So Atul, when we are talking about stretched goal, right now, because of the situation, we are not getting any clarity in terms of how this industry is going to move. In the automotive segment, I'm just giving this as an example, that companies are not even giving schedules to the companies, so how they will plan. But Mr. Sandeep, believe me, this is a temporary phase. So we are talking about a 3 to 6 months perspective where we have less clarity. I will not say we don't have clarity, but we have lesser clarity. But when you are talking about the strategy, it is going to be long term. So on the basis of your numbers of 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, and what is happening on the market front, you can always have a robust strategy in place, which will talk about those stretch numbers for future, but which will require a lot of preparation and data on the basis of which you will actually project those particular numbers, which will be realistic also and stretched also.
Okay. The next
Yes,
one is
Atul.
coming from Nehal, and she's asking, what is goal in business?
So we spoke about vision and mission, right? How do you want to see your company as? Goal is the quantification of the management objective. Now, when we say business goal, there could be many goals you can set for yourself. One of them could be revenue. This is what you want to achieve in terms of rupees or dollars, whatever business you are in. It can be related to profitability. So this is the level of profit which you want to earn on EBITDA level or at net profit level. It can also be related to your per capita sale, which you want to achieve. So if you have X number of people working in the company, how much you want to achieve per person as a revenue. It can be related to working capital turns, like how effectively you manage your inventory and outstanding, which are receivables from the client. So these are a few of the examples which I tried to give you, Snehal. But there could be many more goals what you can set as goal for the organization. I hope, Snehal, I've tried to reply to your question.
Yeah, next one is coming from Ms. Nehal herself, and I think she's trying to explain her question further. She's asking, how do you
Yeah.
define business goal? And I think partially you answered, but if you want to elaborate on how do you define business goal, Abhay? Yeah.
Yes. I'll just further elaborate, Snehal, for your benefit. So when we are talking about setting up business goal, okay, then we are saying there are external and internal factors both. So one, we are talking about historic data, which is available within the company. And second, we are talking about external data, which we capture through the market and competition mapping process, which I'm going to explain tomorrow. This process will give you the set data required for the business planning process. So that will bring in the rationality in the actual numbers, what we will project for the next year. So one is the historic data, and second is your demand forecast, which you are forecasting on the basis of the data internally available with your team and the data captured by you from the market. So both these things, when they will add, they will give you that actual number. The third dimension, Atul, which will get connected to this, is your strategic intent. How do you want to see, or where do you want to go? So that dimension again will add on to whatever numbers you are trying to project for the future. Snehal, is this clear?
Yeah, I hope so. And we can connect with her separately.
Yes.
So the next one, Abhay.
Atul, can I add something to that, if it's okay?
Sure.
So, Snehal, how do you decide goals, or how do you define business goals? There are two fundamental approaches. You look at internally what you've been doing for all these years, and look at internal benchmarks, and then say, okay, I've been growing at so much percentage every year. Can I increase that? So I grew at 10% for the last 3 years. Can I make that 15 or 20%? So that's extending the internal benchmark. The other is, look at the external hemisphere. What is the world doing? What's happening? What are the best players? What are those companies that people would love to be with, are really doing in that space? So if they are growing at 30%, can I grow at 35? So either benchmark yourself internally or benchmark yourself externally, and then create your goals. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Vittal. The next one is coming from Mr. Jaydeep, and he's asking how goals and objectives are different.
I would say management objective is the parameter what we are talking about, and goal is the quantification. So if you say achievement of revenue is my objective, then actual number connected to that is your actual goal. So whatever 4 or 5 objectives or management objectives you will set for, there will be quantification by putting it as a goal.
Okay, thank you, Abhay, and thank you everyone who has raised the questions. That's it. I mean, all the questions are over.
So thank you very much, and I will hand over this to Kiran Rakhe to take you through the operations.
Yeah. Shall we start? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. So since morning we have seen what is vision, what is mission, and what is the strategy to achieve those particular things. But to give a backup to the vision, mission, and strategy, what is required is a adaptability and flexibility of the operations. See, the mantra associated with operation is stay nimble. Here the nimble means how flexible and how adaptive you are to respond to the changing needs of the marketplace. And when I talk about the operations, it includes the manufacturing as well as the sourcing. Next one, Rajesh. So what we are going to cover in the operations area is the typical challenges associated with operations, what needs to be done to overcome these particular challenges, typical transformation initiatives and transformation examples, and then we will end up the session with the Q&A session. Next one, Rajesh. Yeah, next one. Yeah, I will read out the typical challenges which are generally faced in the operations. The frequent breakdown of the machines or the equipments. I'm sure many of you must be experiencing this. Then everything is urgent because operations is the last leg in the complete value chain. They have to deliver everything urgently. Another issue is you have decided the manpower based on your projections, but the projections don't come true, or due to low productivity, you feel that you have excess manpower. So your output per person on a year-to-year basis, when you measure, you find a lot of difficulties in explaining the high manpower. Then, which entirely all these things cumulatively result into high manufacturing cost or high conversion cost. To add to that particular cost, we have rejections and reworks. Then the most critical thing which happens in our operations is a frequent changes in the production plan, because whatever you are manufacturing is no longer required by marketing or the customer. There is something else which is required very urgently. And this one challenge people in the operations area will always face. And the cumulative result of all this thing is not able to supply the product in time to meet the customer schedule and take the brunt of everything. Next one. So customers actually don't measure us on how hard we have tried. They measure us on what we deliver at the end of the day. Next. So in such situation, what is required is a transformation from the old age practices of operations. Next one. So which are the options available for a transformation? One is a business process reengineering, which was started by Michael Hammer and James Champy way back in 90s. And it basically talks about the fundamental rethinking and radical redesign of the business processes to achieve the dramatic improvement in the contemporary measure of performance, such as cost, quality, and delivery. The second one I'm going to talk about is total productive maintenance, or TPM. This talks about the 8 pillars and 16 losses in the manufacturing, and we are going to deal with this in little detail in the subsequent slides. Then we are hearing everywhere about the total quality management, or the TQM. Then lean and Kaizen are the buzzwords in the operations industry. And when we talk about lean, we talk about elimination of the waste. And there are 7 types of waste which are identified in the operations. Then we have Six Sigma and many more such initiatives which come in. Next. So business process reengineering. As I defined, business process reengineering starts with the fundamental rethinking of your customer facing processes. So one should not go for a business process reengineering if he is only looking for an incremental change in the deliverables or the continuous improvement method it basically talks about the dramatic and exponential improvement in the contemporary business parameters. It focuses more on the processes rather than on the tasks, jobs, or the employees. And BPR endeavors to redesign the strategic and the value-added processes that exist within an organization. To give you a small example of the organization in which I was working, and I actually worked with them for almost 4 decades, we initiated this exercise of business process reengineering way back in 1990. And we did carry out the business process reengineering for the manufacturing system, for the strategic sourcing, and for the new product introduction. These 3 processes. And believe me, it took us almost 1.5 years to start taking the fruits of the implementation of this business process reengineering. And the fruits what we received were really fantastic. And I will come with those particular results when we talk about the benefits which are arising out of this business process reengineering. Next one. Yeah, another process improvement initiatives which we talked about is the TQM. It's an organization-wide effort to install and make a permanent climate in which an organization continuously improves its ability to deliver high-quality products. Then Six Sigma, it's a statistical tool which is used to define the robustness of your process. And once you get the signals from this Six Sigma, you work on those particular parameters to make the process lie between the control limits. Then we talked about the Lean and Kaizen, which focuses on the elimination of the waste and aims to achieve the continuous flow of triggering the linkage between process steps, objectives, and reduction of the time from order to cash. And TPM is to increase production and reduce cost. Next one, Rajesh. So how do you really transform a process or make a transformation in operations? The first and foremost is mapping the existing process in a as-is scenario. As the process stands today, as to from which department, which function, which machine the components are moving, you map them exactly. After you map them, the next task will be from the process map, you identify which are the non-value added activities and which are the wasteful activities. The non-value added activity, as a simple definition, I can say the activities for which your end customer is not ready to pay you. That is a non-value added activity. So non-value added activity and the wasteful activity, there is a differentiation between these two. The wasteful is that activity which neither helps you nor helps your customer. Whereas there are some non-value added activity for which the customer is not ready to pay you. Nevertheless, they are required to be carried out as an audit trail for your own organization. The classical example of this particular thing would be the non-value added activity will be the purchase order. Customer is not ready to pay you for your purchase order creation, but that is a requirement of your organization to have a purchase order in the system. And there are many more such examples of non-value added and wasteful, and you have to carefully identify the non-value added activity and the wasteful activity, and your aim should be to eliminate the wasteful activities completely, whereas to minimize the impact of the non-value added activities. Then change over from the process to product layout. See, when I talked about the business process reengineering exercise, which I was a part of, earlier we had a manufacturing setup layout which was based on the manufacturing processes. So all drilling, rimming, tapping, hobbing, shaping, shaving, all those machineries of the plant were together. So as a section, they will be identified as a casting machining section, forging machining section, hobbing section, broaching section. But what that was not giving the focus on the outcome of the product. So we changed the complete layout and made it a product layout, which means now we have factory within a factory. So that was the automobile manufacturing company. So we have divided that entire organization into 7 product units. These are like axle, transmission, engine, body, chassis. So each of the product unit is responsible in totality for delivering that product which is required for the final assembly. So the ownership now it changed from a process to a product layout. So which also changed the suboptimal performance to a very specific performance of an organization. Within that product layout, we also introduced the concept of a cellular manufacturing, and it can be done in isolation as a separate exercise also. That instead of a line layout, we can have a cellular layout, which gives you an opportunity for a multi-machine manning and a single piece flow. So connect the process to process and create a flow of that particular component within your operations. And the last but not the least is to build the flexibility in the manufacturing. But whatever that marketing, sales or strategy or vision they will talk about, you should be in a position to support to those particular requirements in a very flexible manner. Next one, Rajesh. Yeah, so when you talk about any transformation initiative, how do you measure the performance of these particular transformation initiatives? So whether it's a lean, whether it's a Six Sigma, whether it's a TPM, whether it's a BPR, the common parameter which are responsible for improving the operational efficiency are known as a PQCD-SM. It's a standard formula PQCD-SM where P stands for productivity, which is a ratio of your output to input, and the target for the productivity is do more with less or do the same with less. The next is quality. When we talk about the quality, we are talking about the quality of the entire value chain or the entire supply chain. We are talking about the customer complaints. We are talking about the internal reworks and rejections. We are talking about the scrappage. And we are talking about the transit damages. So everything put together has to improve, because what matters to the customer is the product which he receives in his hand in a usable condition. Then the third one is the cost, which is encompassing all the manufacturing cost. So which talks about the cost of electricity, cost of cutting tools and gauges and fixtures and oils and spare parts, and the cost of materials. And you involve yourself in the value engineering and all those stuffs to ensure that your costs are optimized. Then delivery, the on-time delivery every time and in full. This is the mantra for delivery, I would say. It's not only important that you deliver it on time, but you deliver it on time every time, and you deliver it on time in full quantity. The next parameter is a safety. Safety is having a zero accident and zero near misses also. So how do you achieve this particular target of zero accidents? Is through zero unsafe conditions and unsafe places. And the last but not the least is the morale. How committed your employees are in terms of meeting the organizational challenges. Because when we talk about the operations, we are always dealing with more number of people in the organization compared to the staff function. And there is a clear-cut distinctions between the white-collar people and the blue-collar people. So how do we ensure that the complete operations team is aligned with the organizational objective? So that is through improvement in the morale. Next one. Yeah, so we have seen various tools and techniques, the 5S, the Kaizen, the TPM, supply chain management, value stream mapping, and there are many more which are there. But as I said earlier, our entire focus lies in improving the PQCD-SM for the organization. Next one. Now we'll briefly touch upon total productive maintenance. So when I talk about the TPM or total productive maintenance, suddenly it is switched off from the other people in the operations, thinking that this is a maintenance related initiative and this is related to the machine breakdown alone. Actually, it is not so. When you say total productive TPM as a total productive maintenance, I can always say TPM is total profit management. The importance of TPM is understand the concept of TPM. It has 8 pillars and 16 losses. So when we go into the details of implementation of TPM, again, TPM implementation is not a short-term initiative, because any organization to achieve the TPM Excellence Award, it takes anything between 2 to 3 years of sustained efforts. It starts with the implementation of the 5S. Then we select a manager model machine where the supervisors and the managers work themselves on those particular machines and they achieve the desired results of OEE, Operations Efficiency Index, and then we declare TPM kickoff. That is, yes, we are ready to now implement TPM in this particular premises across the organization. Then we have a plan for the horizontal deployment. And after we achieve the results of overall equipment effectiveness on majority of the equipment, we challenge the TPM Excellence Award. Next one. Yeah, so have you ever been exposed to these initiatives such as 5S, Kaizen, TPM, Six Sigma, supply chain, etc.? Can you please respond in your question box so that I can understand? And can somebody read those particular question box for me, because I am not having access to that?
Yeah, I'll do that for you, Kiran.
I will read it.
Okay.
Snehal has said that not so far, not exposed, not
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
Mukesh has said that recently they got introduced to 5S.
Okay. So how is your experience of 5 years, Mukesh ji?
He can't respond. He's only on audio.
Yeah, you can type it out. Yeah.
Question box.
Yeah.
Good, an initiative by Emerson. They had done this initiative by Emerson. This is what
Okay.
Mukesh
Great.
for MSME.
Mm-hmm.
I think these are the questions at the moment.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Can we go to the next one, Rajesh? So is this transformation specific to a particular type of an industry? The answer is no. The transformation can be there in the automotive industry, in the foundry industry, in the aerospace, in the healthcare, chemical, food and beverages, any type of an industry. All the tools which I discussed are applicable and bound to give the results and meet our strategic objective of staying nimble, that is adaptive and flexible. So that is the key to the success of the operational efficiency. Next one. What are the typical results one can achieve through these operational transformations? The productivity improvement. We are talking about the work content measurement and the balancing, and a reduction in the waste. So the typical result is about 30 to 40% improvement in the productivity. That means your output to input ratio improves by about 30 to 40%. Manpower optimization. Elimination of the non-value added and the wasteful activities will give you a reduction of the manpower to the extent of 15 to 20%. Typical inventory reduction. So when I talk about the inventory, I talk about the inventory of the raw material bought outs, I talk about the WIP inventory, I talk about the finished good inventory. The complete inventory of the pipeline, and there is a massive scope of reducing the inventory by about 40 to 50%. Quality built into the process. So quality improvement through the introduction of the standard work practices, SOPs, and concepts like zero defect, which will give you a 35 to 40% improvement in your quality. And downtime reduction by eliminating the root causes of the downtime by implementing TPM. Definitely 20 to 30% minimum we can expect with the implementation of the transformation initiatives. So these are the impressive results one should aim while talking about the transformation initiative in operations. Next one. So I'll just share a couple of examples of implementation with you, and which was done by one of our colleagues, Anil. Next one. So the case study one is a case study which was implemented in Spain and Morocco. It was for a leading luxury bus manufacturer in Europe with production facilities in Spain and Morocco. The client challenge was to meet the market demand, and there was a need to increase the output of the buses. They were in the field of manufacturing buses. And the objective was also to do it without increasing the manpower to contain the operation cost, because we all know the cost of labor is pretty high in those countries. So what was the solution provided and implemented? So through work content measurement and optimizing the cycle times, rebalance the complete manpower. See, there are certain slacks which get developed in the manufacturing because of the imbalance in the work content of a particular workstation. So there are some people who are idling on that particular workstation. At the same time, some people are really working very fast and to the stretch limit of that particular takt time. So focus on eradicating the line stop causes, and there are multiple times the line used to stop. So eradicating the root causes of the line stop, that is how the solution was implemented, and output was the buses per day was doubled without adding manpower during the intervention. They doubled from 2 buses to 4 buses per day. Next one. Number 2 is there was a client who was supplying the variety of the components for a major automobile company. So he was supplying door trim assemblies, sun visors, utility packets, tailgates, rear walls, etc. So about 50 different types of the parts to the automotive industry. And the challenge again with this particular customer was not able to meet the customer requirement. Heavy rejection and rework was one of the major challenge with this particular customer. And because of the high inventory, the storage space was a bottleneck for him. So what was the solution provided to him? The solution provided to him was a single piece flow through a layout change. So a single piece flow implementation needed a particular layout change to support this particular single piece flow and ensured that whatever they are doing is a first shot okay part to the next customer. So whenever the process is to pass a part from one workstation to another workstation, it was ensured by the operator of the first workstation himself that the part is okay. So as a result of all these things, the before Kaizen, the door pad assembly was 16.6, which was increased to 28. Sun visors was again increased to 28. Utility packets was also increased to 28, and the total cell 1 parts put together, they were 67. They went to 100. So there was 49% increase in the productivity. So with the various transformation changes and with the various transformation tools which we use in the operations, we are able to give the improvement in the PQCD-SM of the organization in the operations area. The next one, please. Okay, so what are the latest changes which are likely to happen and which are happening today in the manufacturing? Because during the lockdown, we have seen that many of the activities people are in a position to carry out virtually, like work from home and do a lot of activities related to the business virtually. But operations is one area where virtual working is not going to be possible, because here it involves the change and transformation of a raw material and a bought out component to a finished components. So, and there are a lot of strategic changes which are happening at the national level, at the policy level, so which are going to impact the operations. So I'm just listing down here few of the likely changes in manufacturing which I envisage are going to happen. So the India's manufacturing economy has been hit with the shock of rapidly diminishing overseas demand. Because of the stoppage of the operations world over, the demand of the overseas components is currently reduced. Then shifting of balance of demand and supply economics. Earlier, there were certain components and assemblies which we are importing, which we are doing some value addition here, and again we were exporting or we are selling it in a domestic market. Currently, because of the shifting of balance of demand and supply economics, the entire operations and the manufacturing sector is affected. The political climate is shifting to fulfilling nationalist goal of economic independence. So in short, we are talking about the Atmanirbhar Bharat here. So this is the time to move to the next gen of the manufacturing in India. Up till now, we were having a traditional way of manufacturing India. Now we have to go to the next level or the next generation of the manufacturing in India. An increased input cost is very likely to emerge across the board for the industrial production. So that's a threat which we all are going to have. And there is going to be a lot of pressure on the operations and the manufacturing to respond to it by reducing the conversion cost. Next one, please. Rajesh, no, there is one more slide in between.
Kiran, that is the last slide.
Okay, otherwise, Kiran, if it is available with you, you can just read out those points.
Okay, I'll have to open my presentation because my presentation was not open.
Rajesh, there may be a hidden slide. Just check. There may be a hidden slide. Check if there is a hidden slide.
Yeah, I have the slide available with me. I will read it out.
Is this the one?
Yeah. Yes, this is the one.
Kiran, it's
So
available.
it's available?
Yeah.
Okay, same thing I had also with me. Fair enough. So the flexibility in the production to accommodate the new products, that is what is going to be the need of the hour, because the requirement is going to change very drastically and very fast, and we have to respond very fast. The pandemic is likely to spur Industry 4.0 into the mainstream. Up till now, there are people who are toying with the idea of implementation of Industry 4.0, but I think in the near future, the Industry 4.0 is going to be the normal thing in the industry. Implementation of the supply chain control tower would bring in a more flexibility, that is enabling the complete supply chain or the complete value chain with your IT backup tools and techniques is going to be a need of the hour. Internet of the Things, artificial intelligence and robotics, they will dominate the Indian manufacturing industry. So there is going to be a shift from a traditional manufacturing industry in India to a more of a industry which is dominated by the robotics and the artificial intelligence and the Internet of the Things. And as we begin to count on the human cost of the coronavirus, we may need to rely increasingly on machines to protect ourselves. So there is a lot of reliance on the machines to ensure that we are out of these clutches of the pandemic. So there are likely going to be a lot of changes in the operations area, and the operations team has to gear up and has to ensure that they are fast implementing this particular, first of all, understanding these new changes and implementing these particular changes. So the basic thing we are talking about, the entire concept here is transformation, which is needed in the operations area. Transformation in the manufacturing, transformation in the supply chain. Yeah, I think next one, Rajesh.
Yeah, it is questions, I think.
Yeah, questions. So any questions related to the presentation or otherwise, I'll be happy to take those particular questions.
As there are no questions and as we are at 12:47, can we go to the balance of the presentation? Just so that we can close on time. Hello.
There is only one comment here by Chirag that very, very informative, interesting, fruitful sessions speakers have taught so far, and enlightening us with their expert knowledge. Thanks for the organizers.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Can we go to the Rajesh? Can we go to the closure part?
Yeah, Vitra.
Okay, so I would request all the esteemed panelists to kindly turn on their video so that
I have a few things to say, Renu, before we close. Rajesh, move from this slide to the core slide, which Roshni has sent you the link, what to do. Rajesh, slide 1, 6 mantras. Okay, thanks everyone for having been here and for having attended this session. We still have a little bit of time. So if anyone has a question that they want to ask either on the leadership platform or the strategy platform or the operations platform, the questions is still available. Take a minute or so. If you still have any question, pen it down. We'll try to answer it right now. Atul, you are checking the questions, right? I presume.
Yes, I am. And no further questions, Vittal. Okay, there's one. There's one just coming in from Advocate Sonia, and she's asked how to select a business.
Wow, that's a you want a philosophical answer or a rational answer? I don't know. So let me answer. Try to. Okay. So Abhay, can you give the rational answer to that?
No, if we are talking about Indian perspective alone, then we will have to study the entire market, including other players which are operating in this particular space. So that is as far as the competition and the market is concerned, and also simultaneously find out what is the future potential for this particular business coming in, and then take a decision, okay, about whether it is worth entering into that particular space or not. And the second, a little irrational answer could be, it could be your gut feel or your passion to enter into that particular space, and just take a decision and go.
Absolutely. It could be either do the analysis or just go where your heart and gut tells you to go.
Absolutely, Vittal, absolutely.
Okay, so there's one more coming in from Mr. Rohit, and he's saying most of the SMEs are worried about cost. Typically, what would it cost to engage you on a per week basis, ballpark, for improvements on the shop floor? So I guess it is pointed towards Kiran, but maybe Kiran, you would like to have separate discussion with Mr. Rohit to explain.
Sure.
Can I answer that at a very broad level?
Okay, yeah.
Rohit, it will cost you only if we can make the improvements. Otherwise, it will not cost you at all. We will work on a basis that we will improve things. If we can't, then don't pay us.
In fact, Vittal, we can take up this particular question offline also to tell them about the process.
Yeah, it will be better to take the question offline.
Because then they will understand the statement made
the
by
value
you just
proposition.
now. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Advocate Sonia is just thanking you, Vittal and Abhay, for your response. And Mr. Rohit is also saying, okay, thanks. So we are at the end of the Q&A. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for having been with us. Today we've covered 3 of the mantras about leadership, strategy, and operations. There are 3 more mantras left for tomorrow, and they are about sales and marketing, HR, and finance. So look forward to meeting all of you tomorrow. Have a great day and a great week ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for participating. I would request Mr. Rajesh to kindly remove this slide so that, you know, all the guest speakers can be there and we can take a picture.
Wonderful.
I request everyone to kindly, you know,
switch on the video.
Yeah.
Yes, now we all are. Okay. So we'll take a picture.
Arey Sanjay, smile karna Raja.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just a minute. Let's take once again. Okay, thank you very much to everyone for joining the session, which was very interesting. I would request all the participants after the event or after the closure of the session, you are going to get a survey. So we would be grateful if you could kindly fill the survey and send back to us. Also, you can notice there is an opportunity for you to have a one-on-one meeting with all the esteemed speakers. Please feel free to fill in that form, and which we would be forwarding it to all the speakers. And we have requested if you could kindly indicate the date and time, and preferably within a week. That would be good, because for a one-on-one meeting, these panelists will be available. Thank you very much. So we can now sign off. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Renu.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Renu. Thanks, Renu, a lot for everything.
Thank you, Renu.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.